All right, so unfortunately, I have to redo this because the mic wasn't working the first time through, but thankfully, having to redo it, I've already got all my thoughts in order to make this go as quickly as possible. But today we're ranking all of the characters in Solo Leveling Arise on a tier list. Quick note about this. Always, this is my opinions, of course. Tier lists are one of the most controversial things I could do. Oftentimes people get really pissed off, especially when they skip to the end, don't really understand the reasoning. What I will tell you is about this list is I'm going to put these characters in a way that, you know, initially I was doing this tier list in order as you see it here, and I went one by one, starting with Cha, moving on all the way through. And I realized that once I got around Isla Wainwright, I was like, actually what it is because most of the characters before Go were pretty low on my list. And I was like, okay, well, it's just actually just power creep. Like it quite frankly is power creep, and some of those characters are SRs and things like that. So they're mixed in there too. But, you know, most of the characters are pretty low. But I also realize that this game has had multiple shifts in the way that they handle the characters as a result of power creep. For example, you've got, I'll just dub them this, you've got like your first gen breakers that have some utility, some other things in there, but their main thing that they're doing is breaking, right? Emma Laurent is an example of that. She's got other things there too, like her buffs that she can apply to your team, that are probably a little better now than they used to be, because they weren't, if I remember, it was like defense, maybe something like that. I'd have to pull it up, of course, but I'm not going to right now. And then you hit like this second wave around like Go, where it's like, okay, now the character's kind of an okay DPS, but they're also a really good support character. Now that could be through the passive unlocks in the character with limit breaks, or it could be the weapon. In the case of like Isla, right? Isla does a couple things, but one of them is the weapon. And then after that, you move to like Isla and beyond, and then really, I guess I'll just kind of limit it, not so much to Isla, but since then in Serin and Goto, where the characters have like a lot of break. They break extremely quickly. And then they also have a lot of support. And they've also got a lot of damage. Like they're just kind of like these characters that are doing everything. And so I realized the game's kind of gone into shifts. DPS characters and support characters have done something similar, but it's not as recognizable as it is with breakers, because they're the only ones that have that third layer of being able to break. So I will put the characters in the order that I see fit, but some of that's just how good is the team right now, how many options does the team have, things like that. So first things first, Cha, she's the first character. I think she's okay. I think she's very useful, and some of these characters in like A tier are ones that have secondary uses as secondary characters on teams. Like if you don't have the main one, or if you have more limit breaks on a Cha than you do on a Thomas, I can see that. And then there are also characters that are good in alternative modes, like Guild Boss, for example. That's more or less what you're going to see in A tier. Sorry about that. So I think Cha is very strong. And then again, Light is a very free to play color, because you do get Cha by default from that little mission thing when you start the game. So very strong, and her weapon. So the thing is for a new player, Cha's going to be your best character for a decent bit, because you get all those limit breaks and her weapon limit breaks. So Emma Laurent power crept at this point, not really much need to use her. Secondary breaker supporter kind of character, sure, if you need that, fine. But that doesn't mean she needs to be higher on the list. Serin, all that same stuff. Serin's more of a DPS character, I guess, because the slow cooldowns, the crit focus, the weapon is still really strong. Serin's still got one of the best weapons, or Sa. She's still got one of the, Sa has one of the best weapons among all these characters still. Just pure crit on there is pretty nice, if I remember correctly. Libora, I'm going to place her in A tier, another character that's good in alternative game modes, mostly used as a buffer for her charms and circle and stuff like that. Can be an okay DPS with a crit, but mostly a buffer. So I could argue him as A+. I think he's really good in certain game modes. Again, all these characters in A, I kind of feel that way, or they're going to be a secondary character for their team. I think he's really strong in Power of Destruction. I think he's really strong in Guild Boss. In fact, you could argue him being higher now, because Guild Boss, I think, is weak to fire right now. One thing you know about me is I'll say, like, I'm not sure if I remember correctly, but I know. But yeah, Jungin is pretty good. So I'll place him there, because I'm going to keep this a little bit shorter. The last video was 24 minutes. We'll see if we can get this done in like 16. Park Heejin. gonna place her in B tier. I think she's got her gimmick is still strong. Her utility with her gimmick, you know, the ultimate and all that, is still good. Like you can do that. Lim, speaking of good, never really got a chance. He's a fun character with his sniper mode or whatever, but like he never really got a chance in this game. The game wasn't in a place where it needed a dark breaker, and then when it got to that place, they just dropped a new dark breaker. So he's just kind of been up, and he tries to be a bit of a DPS. He's actually one of the few breakers that scales off attack also, which is interesting, but he just isn't as good at it. Nam Chae Young used to be really strong, still has some utility as a breaker with her freezing and stuff, but not really a character you need to be skewing towards, but is a solid, you know, early game character. Baek Yoon-ho, secondary DPS. I think if your Harper's not, or Charlotte, I guess, is not fully invested in, Charlotte needs at least that first dupe, but you really want 5 on all these characters, right? But Baek Yoon-ho is the same way. So if you got more on him for whatever reason, you could argue him being higher as your main character. He's got a unique playstyle too, where he's chipping away at his own life, but also kind of a little bit counterintuitive because, I don't know, you need to live, right? And he scales off attack, which is good because if you had more defense and HP invested, he'd, I don't know, take less damage, which means he would not do as much damage. He's a weird character. But that's why his weapon also chips away at his life. Such a weird character, but he's a fun character to use. But fun doesn't get you, you know, S+. All right. So some of these SRs, we're just going to put rapid fire here. I think you could use the ones in C, but I don't think you're mostly going to use the characters I'm putting in D tier. Character never really got his time either. The game didn't really need him at the point, but he was still pretty solid. I think he has a shield removal and a stun. The shield removal is actually, is he the only character in this entire list that does that? I think he might be. There's so much. Some of these characters have paragraphs on paragraphs. I forget some of the stuff, I will say. For the most part, but I do know. Maybe I'm wrong. All right. He's going to B tier though. Like I said, which the game never really needed him. And then when it did, they just dropped a full water team, water DPS. And he's fun though. Short cooldowns. When he has the scavengers stacked up nicely, he does decent damage. It just doesn't compare to Amamiya. They made Amamiya in a way where she's just so much faster than him in terms of DPS. So these guys are not really characters you should be using. Dong Suk is okay. One of the few characters that actually applies a defense down, which Choi does as well, by the way. I didn't bring that up. But Baek Yoon-ho here. Lightbreaker, just kind of power crept due to the... I could argue him B+, A- just because the defense down. Another thing about the light team that's interesting is they've got 6 characters, 6 SSRs, because they peaked early and then went away and then came back 6 months later. You could, if for whatever reason you needed 2 light teams, I guess guild boss if you want to, right? You could do Baek Yoon-ho, Cha, Min, and then follow up with Shimizu, Thomas, Go, and do that. But nobody's really doing that. But the defense down breaking is all right, but he doesn't really do much else outside of that. He tries to be a little bit of a DPS. He's just not great at it. One of the original characters, she's got some okay utility. I'll place her there. Min is our first S tier, universal support, extremely strong, arguably the best support still in the game. However, I do think a couple other characters on merit edge him out, but where they don't have the same utility that they're able to be on mostly any team. From here with the SSRs, you're going to start seeing characters that need to be on specific teams to really have their full stuff kind of shine more and more. Iron is just kind of okay, but not really a character you need to be using. Jin-ho, you could argue to flip those two. You could argue they're equivalent, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Put Jin-ho there because I think he's a little bit faster to act, and I think that matters. Han Se-mi, S-tier character, does not, I'll just say, Amamiya does not at all want to be without Han Se-mi. She does not want, she cannot be. She can be, but she does not want to be in a lot of cases. Woo Jin-chul, secondary breaker, was for a long, they buffed this dude like 6 or 7 times. Was really good for a while. I still use him as a breaker for this team if I need another breaker for whatever reason. Like I will use him with Goto. But that's extreme, right? And that's only because Goto is an okay damage dealer. We're gonna go here with you. Alicia, I'm expecting full throttle for Alicia to just be nerfed, and not nerfed, but just power crept into oblivion. But as the sole DPS for this team, I will place her there. As the sub DPS, I think that's her floor as well. I don't think she's going to go any lower. I don't know if they announced a buff for her, but they might. But either way, she's still going to be nothing more than the second DPS option for this team when Cha comes out in a couple of days. Another thing about the water team that's kind of interesting is, like, I feel like they need to remake it for Alicia to really shine. I think Alicia can work fine with Serin and Mei Lin. I think she can work fine with those characters, but those characters skew in a different way than she does. For example, Serin has this effect where when she enters the battlefield, she just gives 20% HP and defense, right? And then the mana up. And Mei Lin's got this power gauge thing. Like, it's just stuff that doesn't, like, she could use that stuff, but it doesn't maximize Alicia. That's stuff that I'm expecting Cha to maximize with, right? Like, Cha's gonna scale off HP or defense. Like, just for example, maybe HP. She's gonna maybe be an ultimate spammer, like things like that. And then another thing with Alicia is she really wants the team to skew in her direction with the core attack lead. You have an okay core attack. I'm not really going to mention Mei Lin, but you have an okay core attack with Serin. But I don't think that's warranting. Like, I don't think Alicia's damage individually warrants the entire team shifting, because the way I see it is I'd rather have a full cohesive unit, right? So I think they need to remake it around her. I don't know if that team just peaked too early because it was the first meta team. I don't know if it peaked too early or what, but I think that they could do better by Alicia, and do something like that for her. Go Gunhee, S tier breaker, awesome character. Around here is where, like I said, the power creep kind of picks up. Most of these characters are S tier. In fact, all these characters are S tier except for one. All of them. They're all S or SS. So that's like where it's like, oh, okay, all the characters are super good. I'll put her here. I think she's actually an S tier buffer, just like the others. I think her 5th dupe is really strong. She's got some stuff that's not restricted, but some of it is. I think with her and Serin, the extra water damage is just going to go insane with Cha. So I'm expecting the water trio with her, Serin, and Cha to be the best team in the game. And I expect that to be what they're going for. Like, I just am expecting that. I'm anticipating it. So some of that's just, I'm putting them here because Cha would be on this tier too, and Serin will be on this tier when I get to her. So some of that's just a little bit of glaze on Mei Lin that she may or may not deserve. But I think Mei Lin's awesome. I think she's a really strong character. She's at least S tier for sure. Main DPS for the win team, Mei Lin goes, or Amamiya goes there. Harper, main breaker, has the pork chop, the ultimate damage up for the team, all that stuff. She's just really strong as a utility character, the stuns. Also, I love her as a supporter for Sung. I don't really talk about support here because I could just really extend this video. In fact, if I was covering specifically their value as support characters for Sung Jinwoo, I could flip this entire list, because some of these, even these SR characters, do some fun stuff. All right, but I really like her there. You could argue Yu Soo-hyun as SS. Yu Soo-hyun kind of aged into this role. She came out way before the Fire team was good, and it was just like, oh, her with Emma and Choi, like, is that doing it? Kinda, I guess, like, you know. But now the team's stacked, right? And she's arguably the best DPS in the game. So, well, I guess right now anyway. So, like, what do you do with that, right? So you could argue her SS. She also got a shadow that is really good for her, and unlike, like, it's weird. I just think that the damage is so high that I think I'm okay with using a shadow mostly for her, but everyone can kind of benefit in a meaningful way from defense penetration than, like, Alicia's core attack Tusk, you know? Like, it's not that that's bad. I just don't think it's as good, if that makes sense, on the Alicia thing. And I spent so much time explaining her stance because I feel like that may be controversial, but it shouldn't, because she's a year old, almost, like 10 months old, and she's getting replaced in a couple days. All right. Charlotte, main DPS for this team. She's got that awesome, like, dash ability, by the way. Super cool how she just flies around like that. And also can kind of get an ultimate on a whim, but extremely strong with Harper. Obviously, Harper's made to buff her too. So there's that. Isla, after the 3rd dupe, becomes, in my opinion, the best supporter in the game because she takes the RNG crap off and becomes awesome. After the 3rd dupe, The fifth dupe is really strong too, but after the third dupe, she becomes the best support in the game. So I think at that point, she deserves to be SS, but I'm not going to move her there. Kanai, man, she if she didn't have the MP problems, she man, I skew a little bit more towards Yusu Hyun in a lot of content just because the MP. And I think Yusu Hyun is better as a result in content that requires more of your time, like workshop. I think you can use Kanai in workshop too. But Kanai is really good in like ranking modes, power destruction, for example, guild boss. They're both really good in every mode, but I think she's like edging it out there. But she's awesome as a DPS. Like I said, the fact she's also throwing the ultimates as well on the core attack or the other skill, extremely strong. Thomas, probably a little better this patch. I could argue Thomas is better just as a standalone character in a bubble than like half this list, I think. But that's not the way the game is made. Gina, another S tier character in my opinion. The team doesn't work without her functioning the way she does. Isol, similarly, the Fire team, while I talked about their main 2 DPSs, and Fire is fun because they're the only team I think that have equivalent damage dealers. No other team has that. While I think that's good, a lot of it also comes from Isol's like prey and then like her weapon and stuff. So she's extremely strong. Shimizu, I could argue Shimizu A. I'm gonna or S. Excuse me. I'm gonna place her in A simply because I don't like the release of Shimizu. I felt like she was extremely redundant. The team already had Min. It could be a little bit of Min glaze because he's not restricted, and a lot of times you want to run 3 characters of the same element. She's a smidge better at buffing Thomas specifically once she gets more limit breaks. That's the caveat on her, and she is a newer gen supporter like the other supporters on the list, so by merit she deserves to be S tier. However, again, I will move her to A. And then these 2 are SS. They break so fast, and I consider them like 3rd gen breakers because they're extremely strong damage dealers and extremely strong supporters. So that's mostly how the list looks right now. And like if I were to pull up their kits in the original video, I did that, but like looking at go look at Serin's kit one more time. Like she's just doing too much shit with, and not the skills so much, but like the extra passive unlocks when you get more dupes in her. She just starts doing a lot of stuff. So extremely strong character overall, and Goto is the same way. Goto uses freaking like 10 attacks in a row. Like Jesus Christ, man. So overall though, these guys are awesome. And I'm expecting Cha to be an SS character. I feel like I could spend another 10 minutes fleshing this out a little bit more, add some in-betweens, add some A pluses or minuses, move some of those A characters around. Same for C, especially for S. I could go S plus or S minus or something and move this around a little bit because I don't know if all these characters are 100% equivalent, but the reason why I'm okay with it this way is for one, it saves time, but 2, it's more so like they're a package, right? Like you're not using one character, you're using 3 characters together. And so if you're using 3 characters together, that means that the characters that may have been a little bit unimpressive all go up as a result of the value of the ones that are really good. So they're all really good, right? So even if a character happened to be A tier, like okay, let me just even if I'm not hating on Shimizu, right? Even if I think she's A tier, just in general, on this team, because the other 2 are so strong, her value is higher. So like that's just the way the game is, right? So overall, I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe. And if you're not supporting a creator, make sure you support me via the link down below in the description for free rewards as well, codes, essence stones, etc.